Your brain grows when you do what you hate. Science, please 7-day challenge. The paradox of growth through discomfort. Why does your brain grow precisely when you do what you hate most? It's a strange paradox. You know change is necessary, yet you feel trapped in the same old patterns. That hidden pain, the frustration of knowing what to do but not doing it, is not weakness. It's not laziness. It's the brain protecting itself. But here's the question. If the brain protects us from discomfort, how can discomfort be the very fuel for transformation? Neuroscientist Andrew Huberman explains, the brain only grows when it's forced out of its automatic route. Neuroplasticity, the ability to form new neural circuits, is not born in ease. It is born in friction. So, is it possible that the resistance you feel is not your enemy, but the evidence of growth trying to happen? Think about it. What if facing what you hate is like carving a trail in a dense forest? At first, every step cuts, scratches, and pushes you back. Your mind screams, "Go back to the open road." But the more you persist, the clearer the path becomes. Eventually, the forest bends to your persistence. Could your discomfort be that forest? Carl Jung once suggested that what we avoid the most often contains the very key to becoming who we truly are. If that's true, then the question becomes, is the shadow you reject actually the doorway you need to walk through? Here's the trap. Do you mistake immediate pleasure for growth? Just because you hate something, does it really mean it isn't feeding your brain? In this video, we'll explore those questions one by one. We'll dive into the science, the psychology, and the philosophy of discomfort. And finally, I'll challenge you with a 7-day practice to retrain your brain to stop running from what it hates. Because what if the very things you resist are the raw material of your transformation? What if your brain has been growing in silence, not in the moments of comfort, but in the moments you chose to stay with what felt unbearable? Why does discomfort feel like danger, when in reality it may be the beginning of transformation? Your brain is wired for survival. When it encounters resistance, it interprets it as a threat. That's why you feel the urge to retreat. But here's the twist. The very signals your brain sends to protect you are also the ones that trigger new neural circuits. Could it be that fear and frustration are simply the signs of your brain trying to rewire itself? The invisible mistake most of us make is this. Do you believe that avoiding discomfort is protecting you? In truth, every time you choose comfort over challenge, you're not preserving your brain. You're letting it atrophy. The cost of safety is stagnation. Think about real examples. Veterans who suffered severe injuries often had to relearn to walk. The process was brutal, slow, and filled with resistance. Yet studies show their brains literally rebuilt motor pathways through this discomfort. Doesn't that prove that the pain of effort is not a dead end but a map of possibility? So the question becomes, if discomfort is the trigger for new circuits, what would happen if you leaned into it instead of retreating? The design of your brain is clear. Resistance is not an enemy to be avoided. It's the hidden design of growth. Am I using dopamine as an ally or as my enemy? Is dopamine really about pleasure, or is it about persistence? According to Andrew Huberman, dopamine is not the chemical of reward at the finish line. It's the chemical of effort along the way. So, when you hate an activity, could it be that your brain hasn't yet linked that effort to its natural source of motivation? Think about it. If dopamine fuels the pursuit, not just the prize, then maybe your dislike of the task is simply a sign that your brain hasn't claimed it yet. Could resistance actually be proof that the wiring is still in progress? Here's the practical shift. What if you celebrated the act of doing instead of waiting for the result? Imagine finishing the first rep of a workout and recognizing it as victory, instead of punishing yourself for not completing the entire session. Wouldn't that make the brain crave the process instead of running from it? Because the truth is this, dopamine can work against you when you chase only outcomes. But it can also work for you when you train it to reward effort. So ask yourself, are you letting dopamine drift, keep you trapped in avoidance? Or are you teaching your brain to celebrate every step? Is my anxiety silently sabotaging me? What if the biggest obstacle isn't outside you, but inside? built from your own thoughts. Silent anxiety has a clever way of disguising itself. It fabricates convincing stories. You'll start tomorrow. This isn't the right time. It won't work for you. But ask yourself, are these truths or just escape routes designed to keep you comfortable? The golden cage is the perfect metaphor. It feels safe, polished, even pleasant. But what happens when safety becomes confinement? If comfort keeps you from expanding, isn't it just another form of sabotage? Here's the critical question. How do you tell the difference between procrastination and genuine resistance that signals transformation? Procrastination is avoidance without purpose. Resistance, however, often marks the edge of growth. Could it be that what feels unbearable to start is precisely what will change you the most? Carl Jung warned us that the rejected shadow holds the key to our becoming. So, what if the very thing you resist the most is not the enemy, but the doorway? The question is no longer whether fear and excuses will appear. They always do. The real question is, will you believe them, or will you recognize them as the mask of growth in disguise? Does my brain really need rest, or is it just a trap? We often believe that the craving for comfort is a signal of true need. But what if that sensation is just the brain's survival instinct trying to keep you from spending effort? Could it be that the comfort you chase is not recovery, but avoidance? Andrew Huberman highlights the role of micro-stresses: cold exposure, fasting, focused exercise. These small doses of discomfort retrain the body and the mind to handle greater challenges. So the question is, are you using discomfort as a tool, or are you letting comfort use you as a prisoner? Think of it this way. If intentional discomfort works like an emotional vaccine, then every time you step into controlled stress, you inoculate yourself against future overwhelm. So, which path builds strength? Choosing ease or choosing a challenge you can survive today? And here's the deeper reflection. Is comfort the real luxury, or is it the silent anesthetic that dulls your potential? Why does what I resist always seem to persist? Carl Jung's insight is simple but piercing. Resistance doesn't dissolve discomfort. It feeds it. So if hating discomfort keeps it alive, could your rejection be the very glue binding you to it? What if you reframed hatred itself? Instead of treating it as poison, could you see it as raw energy waiting to be redirected? Hatred has weight, intensity, and focus. The question is, are you letting that force destroy you, or will you refine it into transformation? Think about coal under pressure. It doesn't become a diamond overnight. It doesn't happen without stress, heat, and time. So here's the question. If pressure is unavoidable, will you resist it endlessly, or will you allow it to shape you into something unbreakable? Perhaps the real secret isn't escaping resistance, but recognizing it as the material of growth. If that's true, then what you hate today may be nothing more than untapped energy. So ask yourself, is your resistance your enemy, or is it your most neglected resource? The 7-Day Challenge: Training your brain to love what you hate. What if 7 days were enough to rewire the way your brain responds to discomfort? The idea sounds bold, maybe even impossible. But here's the real question. Could you spend 1 week facing a single task you hate and discover that the hatred itself was never the problem? Here's the structure. What happens if you pick just one constructive activity that you resist? Writing, training, meditating, and repeat it every day for 7 days. Not for hours, just long enough to prove to your brain that fleeing is no longer the rule. Could repetition with small rewards be the key? Imagine finishing your hated task and pairing it with something simple. A stretch, a coffee, a favorite song. Wouldn't your brain start to associate effort with reward, rather than resistance with escape? And here's the hidden goal. Not to enjoy the task, but to train your brain to stop running from it. Isn't that more powerful than forcing yourself to love it? Think of the reversal. What if, at the end of the week, you realize the hatred you felt on day 1 was never proof of weakness, but simply the signal that you were standing at the edge of your growth zone? So ask yourself, are you willing to face 7 days of discomfort in exchange for a brain that no longer flees from the very things that could change your life? What if your true identity isn't shaped by what you dream of doing, but by what you repeat, especially on the hard days? Andrew Huberman reminds us, the brain doesn't rewire through desire, but through consistency. So the question becomes, are you letting peaks of effort define you, or are you training your brain through steady repetition to recognize who you are becoming? David Goggins says, what you hate is what makes you strong. Could it be that the very things you've rejected, the routines, the disciplines, the uncomfortable practices, are the missing pieces of your strength? What if the world outside isn't the obstacle, but only a mirror of what you lack inside? Isn't it possible that what you've been avoiding is precisely what you've been searching for? Think of the river. It doesn't shape the valley through force, but by passing through the same obstacle, day after day. So ask yourself, do you want to live like the flood, powerful but brief, or like the river, steady enough to carve stone? Here's the final call. Will you keep running from what you hate, or will you walk straight into it and discover that your brain has been growing in silence all along? And if this journey spoke to you, then prove it. Leave a comment with the one task you'll face for the next 7 days. Come back and share what changed. Because your path is not built by ideas, it's built by steps taken again and again. So the real question is this: will you take the first one today? So now the question is yours. What is the one thing you've been avoiding? The task you resist, the practice you hate, the effort that feels heavier than it should. For the next 7 days, I challenge you to face it. Not to love it, not even to enjoy it, but simply to show up every day, long enough for your brain to realize it no longer needs to run. And here's where you can make it real. Write your challenge in the comments. Name the task you'll face this week. When you do, you're not just making a promise to yourself, you're creating accountability, and you're inspiring someone else who is watching this video right now, struggling with the same resistance. Come back in 7 days. Tell us what happened. Did the hatred fade? Did the resistance weaken? Did you find growth where you least expected it? Your brain grows in silence, but your journey can help others grow too. So share it. Declare your 7-day challenge below. And let's build a community where discomfort is no longer an enemy, but the very proof that transformation is happening.